this watercolor paper is Strathmore watercolor paper. It is quite cheap. This is a good option for you if you are new to watercolor or if you just want something to practice on. This is a 9x12 pad with 12 sheets in it, and I tape out a 6x8 portion of it with masking tape, which is, where did I put it? Here's the masking tape I use. This is just Scotch masking tape from the hardware store. I found that it does a good job not ripping my paper. My watercolors are Winsor&Newton. There you go. These are professional watercolor paints. You do not have to use professional watercolor paints. Those are just what I always use, so it's what I'm comfortable with. And then my paint brushes for today are Princeton Neptune, as always. These are my favorite watercolor brushes. They last forever. They're a little bit more of an investment than like the really cheap stuff that you can get at Michael's or Hobby Lobby, but they last forever. I've had these for years. So if you're looking for some art supplies, all of my art supplies are linked to my bio and my Amazon storefront. So you can find these and also everything else that I've ever tried and that I like that you can find on Amazon. So check that out if you want some suggestions. Today we are going to be painting this snowy tree here, and I want to preface this with these are hard in watercolor. I'm going to just get ahead of that now. We will be I will try to explain it as best we can, but if this is your first time painting something like this, just try to be patient with yourself. It is not something that you can necessarily get on the first try. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't though. So just be patient with yourself, enjoy the process, enjoy painting together, enjoy learning something, and then practice if you want to, improve and get better at it. So try and just enjoy the session today. Be nice to yourself. Please be nice to everybody else in the comments, and be kind to me, and we will all have a wonderful time. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is a little pencil sketch so that we know where our tree is going to go, because on watercolor you have to leave your highlights blank. If you want any sort of highlights like this snow, you either have to leave it blank so that the white of the paper shows through, or you have to use mixed media. You have to use gouache or acrylic and paint that over the top, which is definitely an option, but we're going to try for the first one, which requires a little bit more planning, which is why we're going to sketch. What if I don't want to be nice? Well, the serious answer would be that I would block you, but I assume you're being funny, so the funny answer is you don't have to be. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is draw out our trees, and I'm going to do two just so that I have the chance to kind of explain this to you a couple times. You can feel free to just do one if you feel like you might be overwhelmed with two. And what you're going to do is draw out a cone shape like this. For however tall you want your tree to be, you just need a cone shape. And I suggest making them, if you're gonna do two, make them different heights, make them start at slightly different spots, just to add interest to your composition here. The main situation that we're going to do here, though, is these trees, so we're not going to worry too much about anything else. So, two cone shapes. The brush is so last year. Okay. So we've got our two cone shapes. Now, here's our tree. So we've got our cone shape of a tree. I think these might be a little too narrow, so maybe I'll fix that right now. Maybe I'll make this one a little bit wider. They don't have to be perfect. Don't worry about having a straight line or anything. This is just to give you an idea of where your tree is going to be. And then we're going to kind of draw out some of these little shapes here. We're going to do this lightly, or you're going to erase lightly afterwards. And we're going to kind of draw out the shape of the snow sitting on the branches. And these are just going to be like little lumps kind of going throughout your tree. And I'm just doing like these little, I'll show you up close. It's not going to look like anything right now, but I'm just doing these kind of little weird shapes like this, and they're going to kind of follow the cone shape. They can go over a little bit, and they should start small at the top, and then they should get bigger as you work your way down. So literally any shape will work for this. On the edges, I like to kind of do these oval shapes that kind of point out and down, because those are the branches on the sides of the tree that kind of stick out. I would recommend doing a couple small ones, but generally as you get to the bottom of the tree, these should get bigger. Okay. And you're just gonna have to trust me on this because I know this is a little weird. Okay, so it should get much bigger as we're getting, it should still mix in a few small ones, but they should just keep getting bigger as we move toward the bottom of the tree. Don't overthink it too much. It looks like a cheetah tree. I'm telling you, it'll look weird for a minute, but hopefully with watercolor, usually we have to let it look weird for a little while, and then we can bring it back to something that looks more normal. Okay, so a couple big ones as we get to the bottom of this tree here. And you can see I'm doing this quickly. I'm not like being too careful about the shapes. It's good to do this with some speed because then you'll have different shapes and sizes and you won't try and make it perfect. So I'm going to do this other one here. I'm going to set this down so I don't have to keep holding it. And this will give you time to finish your tree if you are painting with me. And this one's a little bit more narrow. So I'm just going to kind of play with that and get some new shapes here. And as we go through this, I will try to answer the questions that I get in the comments, but I do have to paint and talk at the same time, so I apologize if I miss your question. I usually buy my art supplies, including my paint, at my local art store, which is called Plaza. I believe they're mostly in the Midwest and the South. Blick is a great art supply store. They have online store and in-person stores in most areas of the country. Just nothing near me, so that's why I don't go there too often. And then Amazon for anything that I can't really get at the art store, just because it's convenient. I don't love using Amazon, and I do have an Amazon storefront, but that's just because I know some people don't have art stores nearby, so that's an option for you, or have other barriers to getting themselves to a store. So that's why I have an Amazon storefront, but I do try to use my local art store for my art supplies when I can. How often do you do live? I would always love to attend because I'm new to painting. I do these lessons every Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So this time, every Saturday. Not next Saturday though, unfortunately, because I am going home. I will be traveling on Saturday, so I will not be able to do this. Actually, my flight's a little bit later, so I might be able to. I might be packing, so we'll see. Next week is tentative. But usually Saturdays at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Okay, now we've got our cheetah trees here. And we've got our trees settled, and then we're going to do a little bit of a background here. So I'm going to just draw out a couple of like mountain ranges in the back here. Don't overlap your tree. Just throw in like a couple little mountain ranges there. Maybe a horizon line. Again, my paint and sips are uploaded to YouTube, so you can find them there. My YouTube channel is linked in my bio. And then I usually like to do a little like tree line here, so I'm just gonna do kind of a wiggly line as a third layer. And then the rest of this will just be snow. Why don't you love Amazon to support local stores? Yeah, just the various sort of issues with how they treat their workers and stuff like that is not super ethical. It's unfortunate though, because a lot of people do rely on them, and I don't blame any of those people. I rely on them for things as well. And it's just good to support local businesses. So that's just my opinion on that. Okay, so we should have kind of a bit of a sketch here. And the last thing that we're going to do before we start is, if you have an eraser, lightly go through and erase what we've just done. Not completely, we should still be able to see it, but we just don't want to be able to see it through our final painting. So I have this kneaded eraser here. These are really cheap, and you can find these at the art store. And I just kind of run it over the whole drawing, and it lightens up everything. If you just have a regular eraser, you can do the same thing, just lightly erase so that you can still see it, but it's not gonna show through the final painting. And then I will wait. I saw a panicked wait, so I will wait 1 or 2 minutes before we get started again. So finish up your sketch. I will see if there's any questions that I've missed. What pencil you're using in hard soft lead? It's just a mechanical pencil. I don't know what the lead is actually. It's just a 0.5 mechanical pencil. It does not matter. Okay. Why don't you use a harder pencil instead? I don't know. Just use whatever pencil I use. I don't really think about it too much. It doesn't really matter. On these paint and sips, it's good for me to draw with a little bit of a darker hand than I normally would if I was just drawing by myself, so that you can see it through the camera. So that's why I don't draw super light to begin with. That's why we draw a little bit heavier and then erase so that you can see it through the camera. Are all of these 1 hour? I try to make them 1 hour. Sometimes we might go over. We might go over today, so just fair warning. Okay. We are going to get started on our painting here. We're going to do a bit of the background first, and then we're going to do our trees last. So we just need to fill in kind of a simple background just so that these trees stand out for us the most. So for this, we need a sky color. I'm going to move this down so you can see. I do not ever stretch my paper. I know some people do, and some people swear by it, but I've just never gotten into it. Oh, we forgot to do this other thing. So before we get started, take a little drop of water from your cup, put it in all of your paint pans. If you have a bunch of paint pans in your palette, you don't have to do every single one, but I would get the greens and blues for now. And this just helps to dissolve your paint and get it ready for us to paint with. So this is how we start most of our paintings. I just forgot since we did a pencil sketch first. So we'll let that sit for a couple seconds here. Just put a little drop of water in all your colors. This is a good thing to start your painting with because you will not be able to pick up any paint if you're just picking up dry watercolor pans. So let it soak for a few seconds, doesn't take very long. And then get yourself a sky color. You don't have to copy mine. I like to mix together phthalo blue and ultramarine blue. That gives me a good sky color personally. And I think we might do a wet on wet technique here. So don't water this down too much. Keep it relatively saturated. And I will swatch this for you. Ah. Here's that sky color. I use a water dropper for that sometimes. Yeah, some people use spray bottles, water droppers. I just have always used my brush. Okay. So get your sky color ready, and then what we're going to do is what is called a wet on wet technique. And so that means we are going to put a layer of water down in the sky section first, and then we're going to drop that blue into it and let it kind of run around in the water that we put down. Okay, so I'm going to go first. If you want to just watch and make sure that you see what I'm doing, then do it, I will make sure to give you time. So I'm just going to use my brush and my water cup and put some water down. The important thing here is that we avoid the trees. So this is why we're doing wet on wet technique. As long as you avoid the trees, you will not have issues with them getting painted over. So just make sure your water doesn't go over the trees. It can overlap the mountains in the background, that is fine, just not the trees, okay? So I'm just kind of being relatively careful with the cone shape there. And filling in the rest of that area with water. Okay. So make sure you tilt your head. You can see the light reflecting off of it. You can see if you've missed any spots. And then when you've got it all, you can start, you can take your blue and just start dropping it in. I would recommend you start at the top and work your way down so that you kind of naturally run out of paint as you work toward the bottom. And I'm just putting in some brush strokes with movement here. It doesn't have to look like anything. And then we have a couple options to kind of blend this together. If you didn't tape your paper down, if you can pick up your paper One option for you is to tilt it. I like to kind of tilt it in all different directions slowly, kind of in a circle like this. And that will blend together all of those colors with the white spots. You can see there that that's kind of blended together. You can also use this to, need a paper towel. You can use that technique to, if you have too much paint and water on your paper, use that technique to kind of gather it into a corner, and then you can collect it on a paper towel. That will help keep things under control. Other options, you can just blend it together with your brush instead of tilting it. With a damp brush, you can blend it together. And then one more option for you is to use a completely dry brush and pick up some of the paint. And you can do this before or after you blend it together. And this will kind of give you a cloudy sky look. And you just keep drying off your brush all the way. And you can keep picking up paint. And you can kind of form some clouds this way, some soft clouds. Okay, so that's how we're doing the sky. And then once you're happy with it, just leave it alone and we will let it dry. Okay, so if you have just been waiting for me and watching, go ahead and start. That is all the instructions I have for the sky part. So again, layer of water first, and then drop in some blue. You can tilt it, you can blend it with your brush, and then after that, if you want to, you can use a completely dry brush to pick up some of the paint and give yourself some clouds. There you go. So that's what that looks like for me. And they will never turn out exactly the same, and so that's a really fun technique to use for the sky because it'll always turn out a little bit different, but it's very simple once you know the steps. Do you ever use the torn edge of a paper towel for clouds? I like how that looks. I have before. I prefer to use my brush just because it has a little bit more control over the edge of a paper towel, just for me. But I have done that before, and that is a totally valid technique. Okay. How's everyone doing with that? Let me know if you're painting along with me, how that went for you. And let me know when you're ready to move on to the mountains. We'll just do kind of simple layers for the background here, nothing too fancy. I just finished a pencil drawing of some clouds yesterday. That's great, nice job. So if I already painted my cacti and mountains, can I do the sky now? Sure, we're not painting cacti, but you feel free to do that, yeah. Okay, I see some reddies. I'm getting better at skies, so that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. It really just, all it takes is practice, so. And I think skies are really fun when you do it that way. I like this, I really like this cloud texture that I got. I don't know how I did that, but I really like how that looks, so I'm happy with mine. Okay, so I'm seeing some reddies. We're gonna go ahead and move on. So, what we're going to do is use that sky blue here and mix a little bit of brown into it, just a touch at a time. And maybe a little bit of green. So mix a little bit of brown and a little bit of green into it. If you do too much, just add a little bit of blue back. And this will make our mountain color for the background. So just a touch of blue, a touch of green, until you kind of get to this sort of gray-green color. That's what we're going to use as the mountains in the background. You can just adjust this by adding more of one color and less of another, until you're happy with the painting. You can add any other color in there too. This is a gray color, so you can really use whatever colors you want. It will not mess it up, okay? So I'm happy with that color there. I will swatch it for you, and go ahead and water this down a little bit. So add a little bit of water. We are not doing a wet on wet technique for this, so just add a touch of water. And then here is that color. So that's just a gray color. What paints are these? These are Winsor&Newton professional watercolor paints. Does dipping the colors between colors mess up the hues in the palette? No, not really. These are really concentrated and saturated paints, and so sometimes even if you get a little bit of another color into them, as long as you're not like completely adding the wrong color in there, it really doesn't change the look of the color. Okay, I'm going to order these. Thanks. Yeah, no problem. They are on my Amazon storefront, so if you want to help me out, give me a little boost. It does not cost you anything extra, and it helps me out a little bit. So if you'd like to order those from my Amazon storefront, they're available there. Okay, so I want you to make sure that your sky is mostly dry. You can touch it, make sure it can be a little bit damp. It just doesn't need to, you just don't want it to be wet. You can always use a hair dryer to speed up that process if you want. And then we're just going to take this gray color and start to outline the edges of the mountains up here. And what we're going to do is just fill in the mountains up until the next layer of mountains. Again, avoid the trees. Don't paint over the trees. And then as you get toward that next layer of mountains, you're going to clean off your brush and just use a damp brush to blend out the bottom like this. Okay, so you don't have a harsh line down there. I'll show that again. So outline the top of your mountain. I like to kind of wiggle my brush so you get a little bit of texture there. You don't want straight lines necessarily. Again, avoid the tree. And fill it in until you get to that next layer of mountains that we drew out. Clean off your brush, take off some of the excess water, and then just with that damp brush, run it along the bottom of that section so that you get that kind of soft edge there. So it's not a harsh line. Doesn't need to be perfectly blended, we just don't want it to be a harsh line down there, okay? And then we'll just do that final section over here. Same thing. Filling it in, cleaning off my brush, taking off the excess water, and then blend out the bottom. Okay. Thank you. Yes, all my materials are in my Amazon storefront. I've got some holiday favorites in there. I've got a whole tab in there that's holiday favorites. So if you want to see the, like my 2022 favorites, those are all there. Okay. Also, we're at 18,000 likes, which is really cool. Thank you all for the likes. And I do just want to say, while we're painting here, while you're finishing up this mountain set, this bookmark is part of a giveaway that I'm doing today, and there are two ways that you can enter. So the first way is if you want to just leave me a little tip for today's session. There is a, the link in my bio, there's an application in there called Tip Jar, and so you can do it there. That just makes it easy. Anything over $2 enters you automatically to the giveaway. I'm just giving away one of these bookmarks. Or if you don't want to leave a tip, but you still want to enter, if you do a finished painting of this tutorial here and you send me a DM on Instagram, which is the same handle as TikTok, you are also entered to win. So either way you want to do it, you have an equal chance whether you do the tip or whether you do the painting and send me a picture. And it does not have to be watercolor. If you don't have watercolor, it can be pencil. You can just do like a pencil sketch. You could do acrylic, you could do whatever you have. And that's just to keep it to people who are actually participating in the live. So again, if you want a bookmark, free bookmark, it's a giveaway. Any tip that's over $2 or anybody who sends me a picture of their painting is automatically entered to win. And I'll be picking a winner tomorrow around this time, so you have more time to finish this painting if you can't do it now. Okay? So that's just so you know. The next thing that we're going to do is our next layer of mountains. This is going to be the same process. We are going to darken up our color just a little bit. So back to this, if you want to just add a little bit, again, of each of those colors. Blue, green, and brown. That will just give you a slightly darker, and don't add any more water, that will give you a slightly darker version of this color. And I like to make it just slightly more green, just so that it's a little bit different. Okay. And then when you're ready, Again, you do want to make sure that that layer that we just did is mostly dry. Hit it with a hairdryer if it is too wet still. And we're going to do the exact same thing. Nothing's different here. We're just going to fill in the mountain range until we get to the next layer. And then again, clean off your brush, take off the excess water, and blend out the bottom. Okay, so exactly the same thing, just a slightly different color. Again, just pay attention to where your trees are so that you're not painting over them. Go, blending that out. Just subscribe to YouTube. Thank you. I appreciate that. I am trying to get to 2,000 subscribers on YouTube, so if you guys want to help me out there, my channel is linked in my bio, so you can just get there easy. I post all of my lives there. I do try to post other just unrelated videos on there too, or art videos still, but videos that you don't find anywhere else. So, if you'd like to, on the way to piano recital. Nice. Hello, Aunt Lori. Okay, there's our second layer of mountains. If you were painting solid green trees, would you just paint over the mountains? Yes. Yeah, so if these were just going to be solid green trees, because that is a nice dark color, I would be able to paint the mountains in the background and then just paint the trees on top and not have to worry about painting around them. Because we're painting the snow on these trees, and we're trying to do it with just watercolor, there is no way to paint that over the mountains because we need the white of the snow. So just keep that in mind. This sky looks awesome. Thank you so much. I'm quite proud of it. I don't know what I did today, but it turned out really nice. Okay. One more layer on this background here, and this is going to be a tree layer. So I'm going to mix it in the same pan here just so that we get the color consistency. So same three colors, just a more green this time. So again, blue, brown, and green, just more green than the other colors. And just a quick thing, I like to mix, when I'm doing like layers like this, I like to mix them all in the same pan so that the colors all relate to each other. So because I've mixed them all in the same pan, there's a little bit of each color in the next color. And so it's a little painting tip for you. They kind of work together a little bit better than if I just mix them all separately in each of the pans. This will be posted later today or tomorrow. TikTok doesn't let me download it right away, so it usually takes a couple hours. And then it takes a couple hours to upload to YouTube because it's a long video. So later today or tomorrow. And then if your second mountain layer is dry, you can start on this tree layer. I like to, oh, that's not quite dry, but that's okay. I don't mind. This is going to be a little bit fuzzy, and that's okay. I like to do these vertical strokes with my smaller brush, and then we're just going to end it in a straight horizontal line down here to give us like this snow field. So let me explain that in a better way. Horizontal lines for the tops of the trees so that you get this kind of tree texture from far away. It's blending a little bit with my mountain layer, and that's fine. It'll kind of actually add to the effect because it's far away. And then I'll fill in everything until that horizon line that we drew and just do a straight line across. And this will just be, it'll look like a forest that's on the other side of this snowbank. Same thing over here, vertical lines. And horizontal line. Okay, we have finished the background. This is gonna look great with the last one I did with you. Nice, good. Happy to hear that. I really like how that background turned out. Those are good colors, and I like the sky. So I'm quite proud of mine. I like that a lot. Okay, how's everybody doing? I do want to check in with you. We are 35 minutes, about 30 minutes into this. So let me know how you're doing. If you are struggling, if you're enjoying this, all of the above. Hopefully you're enjoying it. Good paint mojo today. Good. Wish I caught this earlier. It will be uploaded to YouTube, so you can always go watch it later. My channel is linked in my bio. Thank you all. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Oh, good. I love getting these positive comments. This is always lovely. Thank you. Need time? Okay, I will give you a few minutes. If anybody has any art questions, feel free to ask. I am a full-time artist. I've been doing this for many years, since the time that I was a kid. Not professional art, obviously, but I have been an artist since I was a kid. I've just always enjoyed it. So I've got probably about 20 years of experience, I would say, adding it all up. This is the first time I enjoy live. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Let me see. All right, let me answer some of these questions here. Why did the algorithm take so long for me to find you? I don't know. You gotta blame that on the algorithm. How did you do the sky? I'm not gonna go back and explain it right now, but this will be available on YouTube. This live will, the recording. So if you wanna just subscribe to my YouTube channel, then you will be able to see all of this whole thing a little bit later today or tomorrow. What is your YouTube? It's hannah.m.p. And it's linked in my bio, so you don't have to type in my channel. I always appreciate a good water painter. I struggle with water painting. This is incredible. Thank you so much. It is certainly something that you need to practice. How do you get successful with art? Really, it just takes like so much practice. People don't realize how much work artists put in. They just kind of see a painting and they're like, oh, that's a good painting. It takes so much practice in making so many bad paintings and being okay with making bad paintings and doing it again. And then eventually you'll get a couple paintings that you're proud of, and then you kind of keep going from there. So that's the main thing, is that it takes so much work. But it's all very rewarding. And as long as you enjoy it, then it doesn't really feel like work. It's just a hobby. Can you post your YouTube channel? I can't find your bio or verbally tell us. So if you just go to my page, click on my handle up here on TikTok, you'll go to my my page, and then the link right above all my posts is where you can find everything that I'm talking about. You're a professional artist. Don't say you're not. Thank you. I am a professional artist because this is how I make a living. I didn't always make a living. Dumb question. Does it damage the paint at all when you dump so much water on the set and it sits? No, I do try not to close it up and store it away when there's a bunch of water there, but it all dries. It evaporates and it dries. I leave it open after I'm done painting, and then you can use it again. Watercolor paint is made to be re-wet and then dried and re-wet and dried. It's made to do that, so it doesn't really bother it at all. Do you scan your artwork for mass production? Yep, I do. Like this bookmark here, I use my scanner to scan this original painting. Yeah, my scanner is wonderful, and I really love my scanner. It's an Epson Perfection V600, I think is the name. Just subscribe to your YouTube channel. Thank you so much. Okay, we're gonna get back to this because I do want to make sure that I try and get you out of here in an hour. We probably will go over, but we're gonna try and get out of here in an hour. So we need to do a couple little shadows first. Well, no, we're just gonna go into painting this tree. We're gonna jump into the tricky part of this painting, and we're going to paint this tree. So we need a evergreen color. This color here is pretty close. We just want to darken it and saturate it a little bit more. So again, green, blue, and brown. Just add less water. This should kind of be more of a, it should really be a thick watercolor paint, not too liquidy here, just because we want to get the most contrast with the background. That was too much brown. Green, blue, and brown, mix those together. More green than the other colors, but you can just add little bits at a time until you get to a nice evergreen tree color. You can add a little bit of water if it's getting too dry. If you can't really mix it too much, add some water. But it shouldn't be, you should end up with a pretty thick paint here. So there's that color. You can see pretty dark. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you got your order. That's always good. Okay, just making sure there's nothing happening here. Are you supposed to seal watercolor when you're done? Nope. Watercolor does not require sealant at all. It is light fast. It basically stains the paper, so it doesn't like rub off or anything. It absorbs into the paper, and you don't need to seal it. Okay, so I'm taking my smallest brush here. If you don't have a detail brush, go to my Amazon storefront and order yourself this detail brush. It's like $8, and it will change your life. It's a size 0, and you will use it for way more things than you're ever expecting. Use your smallest brush, even if you don't have a detail brush. And what we're going to do is basically paint in our trees around those little cheetah patterns that we made before, as long as you can still see them. If you can't see them, make it up in your head. And around the outside, we're just going to add these little branches that are sticking out. In the interior of the tree, you're just painting around those spots that we drew. On the outside, you're just going to add a couple little branches kind of poking out, usually underneath these the spots that we drew, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. I will show this closer up in a second. When I get down towards this section down here, it'll make a little bit more sense. And as we're filling in the interior of the tree, feel free to kind of change up the shapes of those, what you drew before. I like to kind of wiggle my brush around and let it do organic things. You can leave a couple little spaces open. You don't have to fill in the entire thing. And you're basically just coloring in the tree around the snow in here. Okay, so this is the trickiest part. It does take practice. And one thing to remember is that you can always go back and fill in some of these sections, but you can't go back and add more. So just, if in doubt, keep more white than you think you need, and then you can always go back once the tree is done and say, oh, I don't really need that, or that can be smaller. Maybe this one can be smaller up here. You can kind of divide it into 2. We don't need that, stuff like that. So just make sure you keep that in mind. You can't go back and add more, but you can always go back and take away some if you need to. Okay, so I'm going to show this up close. Yeah, these are negative. This is what's called negative space. And like you just said, it is hard to do when you have never done it before, because you're trying to picture what the snow will look like and paint around it instead of painting the actual shape. Okay, so you can just watch what I'm doing on here if you need some inspiration or if you're still confused. And again, I'm using my brush to kind of change up the edges of these. So when we drew them, they were kind of, smooth lumps. And I like to use my brush and add sort of texture to the edges. So there's some branches that are going up through these shapes. We're not just keeping the smooth edges, we're kind of messing them up a little bit with our brush. And hopefully you can see how that's sort of coming out into a snowy tree. Okay, so we're just going to do this the whole way down. And remember that rule that the shapes are kind of getting a little bit bigger as we work toward the bottom of the tree. That doesn't mean you should give up completely on the small shapes. So keep some really tiny little dots there. Don't fill in everything. You can see, I'll show this close up. You can see these really tiny little dots here that I'm just leaving, and I'm doing that by kind of messily coloring it in. So make sure you leave those little teeny tiny dots. That'll help with the texture. Okay, hopefully this is making sense. Comments are pretty quiet, so I assume you're all very carefully coloring in your trees, which is good. This is a good time to kind of let your brush do whatever it wants to do. Don't be too committed to those shapes that we drew before. By the time you get to the bottom of the tree, you should kind of know what the process is. So as long as you're keeping some of those shapes, you can really let your brush do what it wants to do. And it will look more natural and organic than if you are painstakingly outlining those shapes that we used before. Okay. Leave that there. And we will have one more step to do on these trees once the green dries most of the way. So even if you're not happy with it right now, there is still at least one more step that we need to do. So don't despair yet. Wait until we're fully done to tell me that you hate it. Heart be still. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, and I'm just getting to the bottom of my tree here, so I'm just going to kind of fill in what I can see and then just kind of leave it alone. There will be shadow down here at the bottom, so you don't need to worry about what it looks like here at the bottom. Just kind of flatten it out a little bit. And then once you have finished the tree, look back up the tree and say, is that too much snow? Are there spots where I can kind of should take something away? Are there spots that kind of look too predictable? This is where you can go back and step away, look at something else, look back at your tree, look at the full tree, and see if there's anything that you need to change. Just like accessories, how you take some off before you go out. This is what we're doing, we're editing. So I'm just kind of looking back up at my tree at any spots that I think need a little bit more detail or just need, to be taken away. I think I'm going to take that one away. I think I might do something like that. Like that. And then I'll leave that there for now. Okay, I'm gonna do my other tree. Do you have a preference in the paint to water ratio? That is just kind of something that you have to feel out. For this step in particular, we're using a pretty thick paint, so it's not very much water. And then for other stages, we've used a lot more water and a lot less paint. And it just depends on what you're painting and how see-through you want it to be. Yeah. So that is just, and I can't really explain to you like how much water exactly that I add, because it just is very, it's just what I'm doing, and you're going to do something slightly different. So that's just something you have to feel out as you are learning more about watercolor and figuring out how much water you like, how much water your paint in particular will take to get to the consistency that you like, all that good stuff. So just keep practicing with that, and that will just kind of be a thing that you'll feel out as you practice. Okay, for once I don't think I've messed up. Nice. Now let's paint Rudolph. You are welcome to in your own painting. I am not doing that. I saw a question that said, what state do you live in? I live in Ohio right now. I'm from Washington. This reminds me very much of the Cascade Mountains, this piece. I kind of revert to mountains and trees when I just want to paint something from my head. And so that's kind of where I get a lot of my inspiration. Ohio, I have painted some Ohio scenes, but I can't say that it's quite as pretty as Washington. Not very many places are, in my opinion. So it's a tough comparison, but as long as your learning isn't really messing up. Nope. And I have a whole rant about that, which I will spare you guys today, but oftentimes people will think that they've messed up painting, and that means that they are not a good artist. And that is just the exact opposite. All artists mess up, quote unquote, mess up paintings. It is part of being an artist that you make a painting that you don't like. It's just all part of it. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you all saying such nice things to me. My weekly compliment session. Couldn't live without it. Okay. If you were just doing one tree and you're waiting for me to finish the second tree, this is a good time to throw some likes on this live. Double tap the screen. If you want to leave me a tip for today's session, that is always appreciated. Remember, that is one way to enter into the giveaway that I'm doing with this bookmark. And so if you click on the link in my bio, there's an app there called Tip Jar, and that just makes it easy for you to leave a tip. Again, that is always appreciated. This is a full-time job for me, so tips do help. Your local struggling artist. And please do check out my Etsy store as well. That's linked in my bio. I've got some holiday stuff. This bookmark is for sale in there if you don't want to be in the giveaway. What else? I've got just regular paintings. I've got holiday paintings, bookmarks, postcards, prints, all of that stuff. So if you are looking for some holiday gift shopping opportunities, that is a great spot to check out. And I would be your best friend forever if you wanted to purchase something from there. It will get to you before Christmas. Most likely. I can't guarantee anything for the post office, but it 99% will. All right, getting to the end here. I'm going to try and just do this relatively quickly so that I can lead you through the last couple of steps. We do need to add a little shadow to these trees, and we also need to add our ornaments, which we can do with watercolor, or if you find that they are not showing up enough, you can always use any other opaque paint, acrylic, gouache, anything that you have to get some more sort of standout ornaments on there. So we will go over that in a minute, but just wanted to preface that. But do you keep the paintings that you're not happy with? I do. I keep them, I keep most of my paintings in a box in this apartment here. And I keep even the ones that I'm not happy with. Sometimes if it's on a canvas or something, I'll paint over it. But, yeah, usually. Or if it's in my sketchbook, then obviously it's just in my sketchbook and I can't get rid of it. But it's all part of being an artist, and I try to be, even if I'm disappointed in how it turned out or disappointed in myself, it's a good learning opportunity, and it's just part of being an artist that you make paintings that you don't like. So I try to be zen about it. There should be a hashtag on Instagram for us to be able to see each other's paintings. Yes, so this is when I talk about this. If you would like me to, I will do an art gallery on my Instagram story. So all you need to do is post your painting on your story, and then I will repost it on mine, and then that way you can see everybody's painting. My Instagram handle is the same handle as TikTok. So if you'd like to find me on there, you can. Give me a follow. And then if you post your painting on your story, I will repost it to mine. Or if you just post it in a regular post and tag me, I will still repost it to mine. So you just have to tag me, and I will repost it to my story. And that way you can see everybody else's paintings, which is fun. Okay, I'm just going to go back. Hi, Dad. Thank you. I'm just going to go back and edit this real quick. Just take away some of the extra spots. I like to just get rid of some completely. Those are just spots where there's no snow on the tree, and that's that. So I think it just looks more normal to get rid of a few where there's too many. Okay, that's good. Mine never makes it. What do you mean? On my story? You have to tag me. If you don't tag me, I cannot post it. And also sometimes I don't do this every time. Because people asked, I will do it, but I don't post people's paintings on my story every time, just due to time constraints and stuff. I try not to be on my phone more than I already am. All right, get yourself a sky blue, water it down. We're gonna put some shadows on these trees. So, same blue that you used for the sky. Throw a bunch of water in there. I'm still using my detail brush, which is why this is taking me forever. Okay. So you should have this nice watered down blue here. That's what that looks like. Cincy here, nice, me too. Okay, it's getting dark outside. So hopefully you can still see. I'm still on the first tree. That is okay. If you need to take your time, there's not too many steps, so you should be able to kind of watch what I'm doing, and then you can kind of recreate it. And again, this will be uploaded, so if you're behind, you can always follow along later. I do want to move on because we are almost done with this hour. So take this blue, and you are going to outline the bottom section, basically, of each of these little snow bits. I'm going to saturate that a little bit more. That's a little bit too watered down. Okay, so we're basically just adding shadows to these snow sections. This will help them pop out a little bit more. And you're just, again, outlining. You can add a few dots for texture if you want, outlining the bottom half of these snow bits. So just go through. This is a little bit tedious, but try to just zen out and put a little bit of texture and outline the bottom half. Yeah, it's really gross weather today. Just wet and cold and dark and raining. Like Seattle. Okay, so I'm just going to go through. I'm going to start at the top, so I'm not just doing this randomly. And you should be able to do this once you kind of get the hang of it. You should be able to do it fairly quickly. Don't worry about going over the green. It is super dark, so you will not change it by adding this blue on top. So you should just be kind of able to do this relatively quickly and with reckless abandon. If you'd like to as well, for an extra credit point, you can completely fill in a couple of these sections too, especially around the interior of the tree. That's where those snow sections might be a little bit darker. So if you want to, Instead of just outlining the bottom, you can pick out a few to completely fill in with blue. Okay, hopefully that all makes sense. I like to pick out these small ones that are in the interior of the tree and maybe just fill those in completely. Just adds a little bit of, interest, so that they're not all the same. Excuse me. Oh my god. I apologize. Does watercolor work well on a canvas? I actually just tried that yesterday because I was curious and I said, what would that look like? And no, it does not work. It beads off and it doesn't really absorb like it does on paper. There are primers that you can use if you want to that are for watercolor. I don't know exactly how it works, but it's something that you have to buy at the art store. And you paint it over the canvas and let it dry. It's like gesso, like a primer, but it's for water media. And if you do that, then it's supposed to absorb. So the way that you would paint watercolor on a canvas would be to start with that. I've also seen at the art store there are these things called aqua boards, and those are hard boards like you'd use for painting with acrylic or oil, but they're primed with this stuff. And so if you use that, then you can paint on a canvas with watercolor. But I say from experience from yesterday, it does not work if you just try to paint on a normal canvas. Okay, I've gotten to the bottom of this tree, and at the very bottom, we're just going to add some shadow where the tree is standing. I like to kind of texturize this a little bit, so it's not just a straight line across. There's a little texture there. And I think our sun's going to be mostly like straight up in the sky, so I'm not going to add too much of a shadow going in any direction. But you're welcome to if you want to add kind of a shadow on these under these trees. Okay. They're called grounds. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. There we go. You guys know more than me about that. I've always just used paper. Thank you for helping me out with that answer. Here we go on this other tree. Okay, any other questions here? Yes, the ground can be used on anything. Yes, this will be on YouTube later today or tomorrow, like I said before. My YouTube channel is linked in my bio, so you can find it there. If you click on the link tree, one of the tabs in there is YouTube. That's my channel. Go subscribe. I'm trying to get to 2,000 subscribers on there, so that will help me out. I do post fun videos on there from time to time, plus all of these lives. Other things that I can plug since you are here in a captive audience, my Patreon is there as well, so if you're looking for some more tutorials, I also have, there are other little gift perks on my Patreon. You can read more about those there. Also linked to my bio. All of my art supply recommendations are on my Amazon storefront, which is linked to my bio. So if you're looking for some art supplies for yourself or gifts for people, those are all the things that I've tried and the things that I recommend, including everything I've used today. What else is there? Etsy shop. Again, your holiday gift shopping. Why not do some art for your friends for gifts? Are you adding ornaments? Yes, there are ornaments in my Etsy shop as well. Sorry, adding ornaments to the trees. Yes, we will be doing that next. Sorry, I misunderstood your question. There are ornaments in my shop as well. And so make sure you check that out for any of your holiday gift shopping or just for yourself. Nothing wrong with that. Follow me on Instagram, same handle as TikTok, and if you painted along with me, you can tag me in your story with your painting, or just post a photo and tag me, and I will repost everybody's painting on Instagram for today. Okay, so there are our trees. Hopefully you enjoyed. We are going to add some ornaments to these, so finish up whatever shadows that you're doing. If you need to take a break from the shadows and move on to this, you can. You can always go back and add more shadows after we do this. So choose whatever color you want your ornament to be. I'm going to go with red just because it contrasts nicely with what else we have in our painting here. Get a really nice saturated color. Again, not very much water on your brush. And just throw some little circles on here. Now the way that you're going to get these to show up is by putting these on the snow sections. Because that green is so dark, you will not get it to show up on the green. So unless you use gouache or an opaque paint, which is totally an option for you if you'd like. But if you're wanting to keep this strictly watercolor, these ornaments do have to mostly be on the snow sections or out here on the exterior of the tree. Okay, and that shouldn't look weird as you're going here. And just add as many ornaments wherever as you'd like. And I'm just doing little circles. You could do what else? You could do different colors if you want. I'm just going to stick with red, but you can do as many colors as you want. You can do different shapes if you want to. You could do a little tree topper. I might do a little gold tree topper at the end of this just for funsies. Okay, I think less is more when it comes to these ornaments, so I'm not going to do too many. But I think I'm going to call it there. I'm going to do the other one, put some blue ones. I'm going to stick to the red personally, just because there's a lot of blue in this painting. The red ones will stand out much better, so I just like to use the contrasting color. But on your tree, you're welcome to put whatever color ornaments you want. I like to make the ornaments different size circles as well, just for fun. Are you going to add lights or a tree topper? Should the ornaments get bigger as they get close to the bottom? Yes, you certainly can do that. I'm kind of doing that, although I'm adding a couple small ones down at the bottom for contrast. But if you'd like to make that more pronounced, you certainly can. Okay, here we go. I think that's good on that one. Okay, I'm gonna do shiny spot next. So that's something that you can also do with gouache. You will not be able to do that just with watercolor, But if you'd like to add a little highlight on those ornaments, you can see in here I did that on these. You just add a slightly lighter, you know, little spot on these ornaments if you feel like it. One last thing, I'm going to use my fancy little gold watercolor here. This is, the brand is Finetec. I love these metallic paints. I'm just going to get a little bit of gold here, and I'm going to do a little gold star on the top of these trees just for funsies. Gotta wait for that paint to warm up a little bit. I think we've got one more thing to do here, which is to add a little bit more shadow to the general snow area. So after I do this tree topper, we'll do that. If you're still with me, if you're still painting with me. Okay, little, I gotta get this closer to me, sorry. This will be not interesting for you to watch real quick. Because I gotta get real close to this. Okay, there we go. Now the star is on there. You can see that shiny reflection. Love that. Okay. I messed up my tree, but I'm going to try it again. Good, I'm glad to hear that. I promise it does take practice. The last thing we're going to do is take this same color that we were using for the shadows on our tree. I'm using a much bigger brush now, and we are just going to add a little bit of interest to the snowbank here. So you can do this in a couple ways. The general idea is that we're going to put down some blue and then use our dry or damp clean brush to blend it out. So I'm going to show you. I'm just going to put some down here. This is a good way to kind of frame the painting. I'm going to clean off my brush, take off some of the excess water, and then just run that damp brush along the edge there. And you can do that a couple times, just clean it off in between. And you can blend out that shadow. Okay. You can do that coming from the side here. Make a little snowbank like this. And then go along the top and blend that out. You can leave the bottom or you can blend it out, either way. And we're just going to do this a couple times. You can do this at the very edge here too, by the trees. Again, blend it out. This should be a pretty subtle blue. It shouldn't be too dark. You'll just be able to notice once you take off the tape that it's a slightly different color from the outside of the, from the actual paper. Okay, so I'm just going to do that a couple times. And there we go. All right, I think I'm going to be all done. Here is that painting. If you stayed till this end portion, you get to see the tape reveal, which is everybody's favorite part. So lucky you. Here we go. I was just watching this time, but I'll definitely paint this later. You're such a joy to watch. Thank you so much. That's very kind of you to say. Hope you enjoy painting it as well. If your tape is ripping your paper, heat it up with a hairdryer first. That helps the glue of the tape release the paper. It'll save you the headache. I've found that this paper from the hardware store does not really rip the paper, so this tape from the hardware store. There we go. Is it possible to recreate this with acrylic paint? Absolutely. Yeah. The techniques will be a little bit different. You don't add water and like do it like you know, watercolor paint, but you will add white paint instead in place of the water. Okay, very good. So here is that final painting for me. I'm going to sign it. Make sure you sign yours too. I like to put the date on mine so that you can look back and see when you did it. Here's that shimmer on those stars, which is nice. I love that paint. And I hope you enjoyed these